have people still making their way in as they do at 6 o'clock on a Thursday. Hi, everybody. How's it going? Thanks for coming out tonight. We'll still have people coming on in. So I think I know most everybody in here, but hello, I'm Trish Robinson, Executive Director here at Light. And hello to everybody online. Welcome to the Mesa Economic Development. We're going to go all the way back tonight, Bill said. We're going to go back to the original visioning and then outlook for tonight. So I'm really excited. These speakers have been working hard to pull this together for quite a few weeks here. So let me just share a little bit about There's some people on the waiting room too. So I'm going to just do this introduction, and then really this all took place and was brought to you guys tonight by some leadership alumni who pulled together a planning committee and made this happen for you. They helped us cultivate the speakers and the topic and all the things that made tonight come together. And so we've got Matt Law, Don Sage, who is not going to be able to make it tonight, correct? Yeah, but all three of these gentlemen have been working hard to pull this together for you guys. And let me give you a little bit of introduction to our speakers tonight. Just in the next one. So, is it working? We've got Sally Harrison with the Mesa Chamber of Commerce. So she is the president and CEO. And this is a lot of words over here, guys. So I want to do it justice. We got to do it justice because I loved this. So Sally moved from Washington State to Mesa in 2004 and joined the Mesa Chamber of Commerce. And she's been there. She did development with the chamber and marketing with the chamber, and has stayed and became the president and CEO since 2013. She is also the president of the Mesa Industry Defense Council. So you can see Sally serves on many boards in the company, has a strong passion for the work that she does, and she has a commitment to veterans and prevention side. So we'll do Sally. Next slide. Oh, I guess I can do it. Thank you. And that's like, you can do it on your own. We have got Bill Jabjiniak. Do you know how many times I have to practice it? Have I gotten better?
Yeah, it was great.
Was that good? That was good. I think everybody knows Bill. He has been a wonderful partner and stakeholder here within Eastmark and comes to do this conversation with us here. Bill is the Director of Economic Development for the City of Mesa and over 30 years of leadership within economic development. It didn't say how many years ago you moved here, though, Bill.
15. Check. 15 years ago.
In the desert, there it is. 30 years in. And Pat, Senior Managing Director with JLL. And Pat has been, Pat is in Phoenix, office here and specializes in agency leasing and industrial and logistics supply chain solutions for local and national, multinational corporations. You know, I know.
It sounds better than it's actually.
I don't know. I've gotten to meet with the two of you. I mean, it is pretty impressive. So, but for those of you, do you want to just give a quick what JLL, because JLL doesn't kind of describe the overall comprehensive services. So I think before I go, you need to share.
Yeah, sure. So JLL is a Fortune 500 company. We're actually described as a technology firm specializing in real estate. So we do everything from agency leasing for projects to corporate occupier representation, and our expertise spans the entire asset class, from office to logistics to retail to multifamily, capital markets, And we operate in every market across the world. And we're happy to be here representing.
You're the second largest commercial real estate company. About 80,000 employees across the board. So we are excited to be a part of this and attached to this project.
Yeah, thanks for joining us tonight. It was really a great suggestion to reach out and bring a great opportunity, gentlemen. They're going to bring a wealth of expertise and a lot of the questions that we received from our residents. What's happening over here? What are all these buildings? What's to come? And so Pat and Steve are here to enlighten us a little bit about what we ought to see, might see in the future. And Steve Larson is Pat's partner over here, also Senior Managing Director for 15 years, Steve. You've been developing property marketing strategies, very in-depth and so anything else that I want to start there?
More than enough. Thank you.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the flow this evening. So we just did welcome interjections, and our speakers are going to start with Sally, who's really going to talk about our business-friendly community here in Mesa. And what is the Mesa Chamber of Commerce? What are the benefits of it? How businesses can get involved or how each. We'll move on to Bill, who's going to give us, as I mentioned, a good overview historically of how the Mesa Economic Development Strategic Plan came to be, and bring us all the way to Eastmark. That was an outcome of that plan, and what we will be moving forward. Pat and Steve will follow Bill to share more about our commercial growth out here. And then Matt and Dawn are going to take it away. We've had some really great questions submitted in advance, so thank all of you here and all of you that are joining us virtually for submitting your questions. We have them all and we'll be asking them. And for those that are here with us in the room tonight, we will have an opportunity if other questions surface to take your questions here. Unfortunately, for those who are online, we aren't able to do that. So we just hope that you really enjoy the information that's shared tonight and benefit from the that's happening here. So a couple other notes is that any questions that come up that are really respective to the continued development or a developer question, we do not have the developer represented here tonight, so we won't be able to answer any of those questions. We also don't have city officials here with us tonight, so that might come outside of, I mean, you're a city official though, but I'm just helping you out. If there's anything here, we have a city official, but if anything, elected official, that might come up, that might be outside of, sometimes these questions come up. So just to let you know, if there are things that come up that we aren't able to answer, we'll just make a note of that. So without further ado, let's have Sally come up and join us, and I'm going to switch out to the PowerPoint here. I appreciate the opportunity. I remember coming here with the trolley to first of it. That was a fun meeting.
And you can use this size.
She went and yep. Yeah, you're gonna do that. Yeah. All right, it's all yours. Okay. So, like I said, I've been at the chamber since 2008. Really, the biggest thing is our mission. We are in place to promote and advocate and improve our business community. We have been a chamber. It felt like forever when we celebrated, but we've made a lot of changes over the last, I think, 10, 12 years, really to be prepared. We're not the old boys club that it was on our board, but we have kept things in place that worked, and then we added. So as you can see, well, as you might have seen, our membership has gone up. When I started, we really had a kind of a mess to clean up. Some older staff had kept members on the books that weren't really members anymore. So as you can see, 10 years ago, we were at about 600 members-ish, and as of today, we're just 1,000, about 1,030. Our real growth actually came during the pandemic, which has been really rewarding. I think we worked really hard to support our businesses, even businesses that weren't chamber during a couple of years, and I believe it's paid off quite well for us. Part of that is some of the different programs that we have. So, as you can see, we have lots of committees.
Sorry, repeat.
That's okay. We're part of an alliance called the East Valley Chambers of Commerce Alliance, and it's 7 valley chambers representing about 5,000 businesses, and really that focus is for legislation. So we have lobbyists that work for us. They represent us at the legislature, and it's a benefit. That's the worst part of my job, and I don't want to spend time. But we've really had some big wins. We ran a bill that was really pushed by the Mesa Chamber of Commerce, and it's all basically extortion. It's not a fun term, but there were a lot of our businesses that were talking about people coming in and really saying, if you don't give me this, I'm going to write about you. And so that extortion became a bill that we can Juicy signed off on it. It's in place at this point, and there's finable actions that can be taken. So it's been a huge plus for like hotels, retail. You know, a handful of our businesses that were having issues are now using that. So somebody comes in, they have kind of an avenue to react to that. Obviously, members of other groups. Our own committees, though, range from our financial network to our government affairs. We have a veterans program that ran to a venture that we opened. New committees include an Asian committee and a Pacific Island committee. I think probably one of my favorite committees that I still manage at our office is the Industry and Defense Council. That was a suggestion of Senator Kane. We have a lot of defense contractors in Mesa, and he felt that we should pull everybody together to have one voice going up to a congressional level. It has drawn a lot of businesses to be part of the chamber, so they can be part of that committee. And it's been a lot of fun and very rewarding. So,
And it's stuck.
okay.
There we go.
All right. So as far as networking, that is part of what we do. I think we've done less focus on that and more on committees because not everybody wants to go to a networking lunch. We have a TV show that has been produced for the last 12 years. Not the same the last 2 years because of COVID, but we are starting back up this fall. You can see it on YouTube. We have over 8 million minutes viewed on YouTube, which is pretty significant for Chamber of Commerce. It's a takeoff on the government. And we have like a guest host, but then we highlight things that are happening in our community. It's aired on Channel 11. We highlight a nonprofit. It's fun, it's informative, and educational. We have other things like through an evening next door we call Taste of Mesa, which is thank you very much for doing that. And then our annual event is the State of the City, which is our mayor's breakfast, which you also sponsor. Thank you very much. We basically bring 850 of our closest friends and elected officials to the convention. Mayor gives his annual address, highlights all of these folks too, which is a lot of fun. And then we have other events, including our golf tournament and an event that's my personal favorite called Aviation Fascination. That's how we feel. We bring in an Apache for people to get up close and personal to, and it's just a fun event with the public and family. So lots of fun. So in addition to the committee and the programs we have some leadership programs, including our junior chamber of commerce that is partnership with Benedictine University. We have a young professionals group, which I'm too old for, so I participate in that. And we have Mesa Leadership that is, I want to say, our 40th, something like that. We just kicked off this year's program last night with 31 new classmates. We have a program that is a partnership with Mesa Community College because the downtown MCC campus, where we have a startup space. So we have 14 businesses that work out of our office. They come and go sometimes at night. They have access to their space, but it's a good opportunity for the folks to have access to our businesses as mentors. It's an opportunity for them to come in and learn from each other as well as our businesses. The Outlook Boutique is part of that program. It's basically a group of students and educators from the community that started an app program for small businesses that can't afford to go and, pay big money. The Capital Opportunity Program is a spinoff from our Mesa Financial Network. We have, I think, 5 banks that are involved in it. It's put in place for small businesses to be able to access capital through a program of coming into us, discussing what their needs are, and then we match them up to one of our member banks. And then, as you can see, we also work with the campaign, and then small business Saturday that go on. We are autism certified, and we work with our Aging and Healthcare group to become a dementia-friendly city. Just recently, a few months.
So we just, this is the microphone here. You don't have to yell, but
Okay,
you can
talk about it.
just project a little bit.
I will try.
Online.
So this is just more about the Industry and Defense Council. It was launched in the fall of 2015. Since then, we have about 40 of our businesses, and it's been really rewarding because it's not just Mesa businesses that want to be part of that. We've brought on some larger companies from the rest of the valley, and we have a great relationship with numerous proving grounds, which seems weird, but a lot of our defense contractors and manufacturers do testing in Yuma, and so it's been a great collaboration and really helpful to the community. We also have about 100 nonprofits that we work with. And years ago, I thought we had a lot. We had 8, and so we started a nonprofit group. And obviously, it's grown because now we do have, I guess, 2. It was fun. During COVID, I thought they would be too busy and focused on their work. And I told them, okay, we'll hold for our meetings instead of having a monthly meeting. And they, instead of not having a meeting, they wanted to have 2 every other week. So we ended up, supporting them, but also sending out volunteers to help them do things like food distribution. Our veterans program started in 2015 with a small group of members that were either veterans or veteran-friendly businesses. In 2017, I think I had talked till I was blue in the face and talked somebody into supporting the idea of opening a veteran center. So we partnered with Mesa United Way and opened the Mesa Veterans Resource Center. It is walking distance from our office, which is great. They were seeing about 230 vets a month pre-COVID. I'm not sure what they're back up to, but probably in the high 100s. It's kind of a one-stop shop, and they have veteran service officers from Veterans Administration. So our vets from this part of the valley don't have to go to Phoenix to get their benefits, which is a huge benefit. That was, I was talking about the collaboration that we have with these. Okay, so during the pandemic, I sent my staff home. We all work from home. Their focus was to do outreach to the business community, and that included non-members. I think the best part that came out of that is when we were able to help the businesses that really felt like they needed to drop their membership because they couldn't pay. And we had other chambers that we work with that if you couldn't pay your dues, they were basically telling people that they wouldn't be able to be a member anymore. We took a different approach. We gave memberships away to some folks that had been members for a long time, felt like they just couldn't, keep their membership. There were others that were charging people to get on Zoom calls. We were like, we're not charging somebody to be on a Zoom call with them. I think that's part of why our membership went up, because we took that approach and it was all about helping others instead of what people could do for us or what we could do for us. And some of us volunteer on our behalf. And we partnered with economic development. Oh, seriously. We partnered with economic development, the staff that works at economic development, not Bill. And we processed, 600 hours from staff time, and that was 2 staff members. We processed almost $300,000. Basically, we had 12 chamber members that provided products and services, everything from accounting to web development for small businesses that needed that assistance. And it was interesting because we really didn't realize how much some small businesses didn't know until they asked for help. Some people had no website, no social media, and really no way to actually do outreach. And I still don't know how they learned business to begin with. But it was great. We did that and then went straight into a business builder program, and now we're in the 3rd process of the business builder. So great partnership with the city. We're not funded by the city, but we have a great relationship with
Shelley, glad to know that $200,000 no one. So we did a great job.
oh, thank you.
Well, make it clear.
Thanks, that's good to know. So that's it. That's my team. Everybody just loves Mesa and loves the business community and really works really hard to just take care of, especially our smaller businesses that do need that assistance and maybe don't know where to turn. We get calls frequently just wanting to know how to get started. We have things in place like the Green Flag program where businesses can actually come work out of our space if they don't have a storefront. And we've got other members that are there to support their startup needs. So I think that's it. Thanks, maybe.
Fantastic.
Okay.
And we'll wait till the end for questions.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Here's
you.
a picture
Oh, is the next
from the
one?
bus tour.
Oh, here.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bill, I will get your slides going for you.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'm going to stay put. I've got a big mouth, so I should be able to hear. Into the microphone unless I want you. Yeah. So, are you okay? You're okay. Good. So, I will say this. It challenged me a little bit because I had to go back to before I started at the city in 2007 to do some research. Thought it was interesting. And as I step through this, I want you to think, but I really want you to turn around first and look at the map. Look where Eastmark is as it relates to the map. That's really what we're going to cover now and how we got here from a strategic effort. And there's details I'm sure I forgot. The point here is there was a tremendous amount of fun. 2006, Williams Gateway area, Mesa, Arizona, done by the Urban Land Institute. They actually have an advisory services panel in the real estate industry come out and spend a weekend. And what was interesting, their assignment, and I'm only going to read a couple of things. What type of long-term development vision is to drive future growth, development, and private investment? How can we best promote the development of Michigan airports and commercial airports? How should we evaluate the relative merits of immediate rezoning request for residential development in the area in relation to our long-term interest in reserving adequate areas for future employment uses? One last one, how do you best use the Southern Pacific Railroad freight line running study? Okay, that's alive and well. And I will tell you that from a conclusion standpoint, and it's just I'll get the first sentence. The panel has ample reason to declare that the Williams Gateway area is one of the most promising expanses of undeveloped land in the Phoenix metropolitan area in western United States. That's a pretty strong statement. And to see where it's at, this is just 2006, so we're not quite 20 years into this. And you've got a lot of this accomplished and more to come, I'm sure, but you know, urban villages should include a substantial amount of employment uses. You're seeing that. The goal is to present the Williams Gateway area as an exceptional destination for business and educational opportunities with supporting residential communities that will allow these functions to flourish. That's from 2006. Stop and think about it for a minute. Where are you at today? A lot of that stuff has been actually accomplished. There's a whole lot more. So will you go back to just the front slide there for me? So that is an actual picture of a strategic development plan that was done built upon from this ULI study, various interactions with the community back then and adopted by council 2008, the end of 2008. And what was going on in 2008? Yeah, exactly. I saw the thumbs down back there. You're right on. Things were going south in a hurry. Steve wasn't exactly making a lot of deals. Pat was, but Steve wasn't. Anyway,
Harsh but fair.
so the whole idea was to really look at the area, not just on airport, around airport. The word Airtropolis was born back then. We actually built a city around an airport. Different. We didn't quite go there, but you still generated a lot of activity. And there are two land studies. I'm going to get a little technical here. But when you think about transportation, all of you want to know how you're going to get around with all this development going on. There's actually a transportation study that extends from approximately Power Road to Meridian and from Southern Ave to Jamaica. That was back then. And the land use study extends from approximately Power Road to Meridian and the halfway point between Guadalupe Road and Elliott Road, all the way down to Jamaica, which is appropriate. So those are the things that we adopted back in 2008. So there was, believe me, there wasn't a whole lot of houses on this lovely piece of desert at the time. It was dirt track. Okay, go ahead. Next one. So this is the area that's very similar to what you see behind you on the wall when you're in the room here. But think about how the gateway area as it relates to the region. And we want it to be an internationally recognized destination, not just domestically, but internationally. And a great place, obviously, to live and work and play and recreate. But the other thing is, you think about the business climate. 2008, there wasn't a whole lot, believe me. I couldn't attract anybody back then. But how do you get a friendly business climate at the same time we're trying to bring in global resources and a knowledge-based economy? It was a little more difficult when you have this open piece of desert. So that's the region. Let me talk the next one. So comparison, what we call the jewel of the Southeast Valley. Let you guys read from that, but the largest, last great window of opportunity in the Southeast Valley, and develop the plan. But for me, it's the 32 square miles that we sit on. Again, I'm talking not Eastmark, but the whole southeast corner is as big as Paris. We're 2/3 the size of San Francisco. That's the southeast corner. So, you know, it's important to bring in the relative sizes and what we're dealing with here for land mass and the area that we're seeing. We're not seeing, we don't traditionally see a density like you see in San Francisco. It's not vertical. We're still used to a horizontal sprawl. So that changes as time goes on, and you will see adaptive reuse of different properties. You'll see vertical. I can tell you the planning staff today was pushing a developer to go a lot higher. How many more than 4-story buildings do we have in Mesa? Probably less than 10. So how do you push that? And it's now time to start to push quality and time to push verticality or density. And do it in a vertical way. Okay, thanks. So zooming in a little tighter here to the district here, if you will, or the whole southeast corner. The whole idea here is there's the 4 goals of these regions. And I'm going to actually talk about all of these, but really think about job creation, connectivity, sustainable development, maximize the value around the airport. So we divided the area up into 4 different areas. And obviously the big one that's on here, or on Eastmark, is that mixed use area in the north, what I call the northeast quadrant. A lot of discussion inside the loop, the airport corridor, and then obviously down that heavy industrial area to the south. I want you to think about one thing. When I talk about entitlements, it can be a questionable word these days, but an entitlement is different than a plan. Showing you as a plan. Somebody goes through a zoning process, you get a land entitlement. And the challenge in our business is how do you do it efficiently with a vision for the future, which is why you have all these studies. So keep that in mind, because we're going to mention that one more time at later in the presentation. But when you have an entitlement, it goes with a piece of land. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay. Next one. So up in that mixed use community district area, mix of uses attract knowledge workers. We want to get something besides, Mesa was dominated over the years. And again, the #1 challenge in 2007 was turn the boat around. We don't have a boat, boss, we're in the desert. Well, then turn something around, because this community relied on sales tax, which meant they attracted retail, period. And I use the example of what happened to Fiesta Mall when they built Riverview. It emptied out. Okay, so change the paradigm. Go after a high value, high wage job. That high value, high wage job creates a demand for quality housing to live in. You then turn around and what follows housing? Retail. Then you finally get your almighty tax dollar, which is what the city survives on. Remember, Mesa does not have a primary property tax. We do not run government by taxing the buildings, the houses. We run off a we run off the sales tax. That's how Mesa operates. So it's important to have sales tax dollars, but we do it in a different way. We have a lot more economic benefits starting from up here all the way down. So real quick, knowledge workers, job centers. Think about the southeast corner of Elliott and Ellsworth, intersection of Ray and Ellsworth. I'll get specific at the end on that one. But then complete streets, and I had to go look what complete streets are. Is an approach to planning, designing, building, and operating and maintaining streets that enable safe access for all people who use them, including pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, and transit riders of all ages and genders. Different concept. And that's why you see narrow streets within the Eastmark development. It was done on purpose. That was something that was done. Now, the perimeter, different. You're going 3 lanes wide, one direction. We did the Facebook deal, and it's fun because guess what? You not only have to bring water and all that, and then give it to us, and we're going to charge you for it again. You have to do all your infrastructure. And while you're at it, you got to do one over here, Point 22 and Signal Field. The point to that is development pays for itself is the objective. And you will see a lot more construction activity in Ellsworth before it's done. But price of progress, these guys are involved in a deal inside the loop that trying to put all the different developers together to work. We're all waiting for who's going to put the infrastructure. Probably the mature group that actually pushed the envelope is now they're all planning to put this stuff up. But those are important things. Go ahead to the next slide. You got to keep me moving because I get paid to talk. So, you know, that's all. All right. So inside the loop. So think about, you know, Elliott Road in west of the 202, if you will. I thought this was interesting, even what the development pattern has come into today. Look at one. Growth and development of the airport is not inhibited by the development in this area. It could be. They have put in a housing development inside it, or starting to. That could prohibit development of the airport. So you go, why'd they do that? You know, right people, right time, and they had the votes and it got done. That's the democratic process. In the meantime, sitting next to it's Amazon facility. Is it not officially Amazon?
We're not allowed.
No, actually, you can. I might have just slipped and blamed Sal. No. All right. So anyway, but that big thing sitting on the west side of the 202 could be your favorite internet retailer.
Seattle e-commerce.
Okay, major job center is the second bullet, and the third one, promote and take advantage of the freeway and transit accessibility. That's the objective. There is a deal that will start this fall, in October. Smiling because it's theirs that will actually open up fully with Haas as it goes from Ray up to the highway. And underneath, if you want to go north of, it doesn't go anywhere. It will, at least half a street. You got developers paying for that half street development all the way to Blue.
Construction starts in October.
So yeah, there you go. So the point there is it keeps right on going in that this is opening up new lands for development. We just need to make sure we protect your major employment areas like an airport. Because all of a sudden you're restricted on flight access. Watch what the companies do. So we'll see what happens. Okay. Yeah. Okay, airport and campus district. So again, think about what Poly has, the Poly area, think about the area around the airport, off of the south side of the airport, the next slide, but all of them have to consider height. FAA has input here. They actually have a form called 7460 that needs to go through for development in and near an airport. You have to be very cautious of that. And a charter school, just so you know, has the ability to pretty much do what they want to do anywhere. And there was a charter school that's near here that built on the south side of the border and put a spire on top of it that caused airplane approaches to change. Did not coordinate with anyone during the airport. Those are challenges that you don't foresee, but they have that ability to do. So height is a major consideration. Again, job centers. Everything we're doing down here should be focused on jobs, not just any jobs, quality jobs. We'll talk about some of those differences. Complete streets, and then future developments to consider innovative structures and alternative energy mix. Trying to be a lot more energy efficient. Think about solar a lot more. Think about different types of development along the way. Okay, last one. And this is held true, logistics and commerce district. So they are underneath the airport and out to the east of it. This is where if we're going to put any kind of large truck activity, this is where it should go. This will be south of 24, so that traffic will not come up into the neighborhood. It should get access here. You can't just say no to every warehouse that comes along. I'm going to draw a distinction. When someone says industrial, there are two types of industrial. There's the manufacturing pieces, and then there's the logistics or warehouse and distribution. We talk about this often because I tell them, no, I don't want a big cross-docking up here on Elliott Road, but this demographic here in this part of the city, I always use Ray and Ellsworth, will rival the income demographics at 24th and Chemical. That's a major selling point. So I instead of talking about the whole city, I'll talk about this corner. That income demographic also demands a higher quality job. That typically ends to more educated uses. There's a lot more educated folks out here. That leads to a bit more manufacturing than it does warehouse and distribution. So a lot of emphasis on manufacturing, but remember the entitlement versus the plan. Sometimes these developers already have an entitlement and you can't change them. So they're entitled to it as much as I want to put a whole lot of retail along elsewhere. Part of it has a light industrial zoning to it. What do we do? You're legally entitled. So just last couple of comments here. Focused circulation system in this area is to facilitate the movement of truck traffic. Here it's about trucks. Queen Creek has ignored everything we've done, if they're in the room or not. They've ignored everything we've done. We posted signs more than 8 years ago, before Kevin Thompson took office. This is a heavy industrial employment area. Ignored for houses on the south side of Jermaine. Truck traffic and moms in soccer vans don't go together. So I see a lot of smirks. I don't know if that's good or bad, but we'll find out sooner or later, I'm sure. Okay, let's move on. And then I just wanted to show the map here a little bit. I kept a lot of the names off it here, but we did create a little bit of an emphasis up in the tech corridor. That runs technically from Signal Butte westward all the way over to Hawes. That is a overlay district, being technical. The overlay, you can't take away someone's entitlement by law, but we can offer them an opportunity to opt in to an overlay. In order to do that, they have to agree to a few things. Better quality, and for us, we're pushing that manufacturing effort. I really want tech jobs in the tech corridor. For that, we'll get the entitlement process done. Instead of 6 months, we'll go down to about 6 weeks. And that's because it becomes an administrative process. The elected officials have given it to the planning staff to get done more efficiently. That has worked on several of those, but we just were beating off Costco. Everybody wants another Costco. So the Costco that showed up was literally I hope it wasn't a good deal.
It wasn't hard, but it was something we made up.
Yeah, I think so. So the point is, it was more of a distribution facility in the middle of a tech corridor. And we said, no, there was no political support, there was no staff support. So we are trying to send the right message, but I will tell you on an international scale, Apple, Facebook, and Google, even though Google's outside of the whole tech corridor, has been a great selling point for Mesa and Southeast Mesa in particular. So one final thing on the actual Eastmark piece. There is a lot of discussion about, we have given them zoning and we give the flexibility to move some things around. So if you go to the next slide, that's just to give you an idea of what the zoning, the blue is industrial. That's what everybody's entitled to without changing it. The purple is obviously the Eastmark area. Go to the next one. Okay, on Eastmark, you have all these different lugs. Basically, they're development units. And for us, what we're trying to do here is give flexibility to the developer to move things around, but still meet the minimum requirements that are called out in the plan. Yeah, I'm going into the big thing for you, that's okay. Nothing new, they can head on it. But you know, within there, I think 15,000 homes that were planned and allowed. There's also 20 million square feet of non-residential. Now, that includes retail, that includes hospitality, that includes industrial. 20 million square feet is a lot of square footage. That is what's been entitled. And more than that, there has to be changes made. So you can see where each of these development units have been given a certain allocation, and then overall they can move them around like chess pieces to make things happen. That's what's going on. Okay, I'm getting you in the end. What's left? Oh, that's what we just talked about. 5 acres, 15,000 homes, dome-wise. 3,000 community acres, 20 million square feet. You guys can read that as much as I can. I wanted to touch on one thing as I go to hand this off, actually, two things. Hot off the press from our friends at Greater Phoenix Economic Council. Greater Phoenix is a regional economic development group that provides us leads and opportunities. Through the end of June, current active prospects, 242. Of those, FY22 actually has been more. By that I simply mean this year's prospects are 272, 242 are active. So we've completed a bunch in between is what that's simply saying. The capital investment, $100 billion. Job potential, 71,551 potential jobs. Square footage of about 81 million. So we won't get into breakdowns, but that comes from our region. That's how much demand is in the marketplace. So I am now saying no to different things.
Don't look at me like that.
We get till we go back and forth. We had a food processor. I'm going between the amount of water they use and the potential for smell, I would go past. That was not even up this way, it was down south of the airport, where I could probably get it done. Don't want to respond. So we are trying to do some of the right things. The last thing I have is the next slide. Yeah. This is retail. So I've got it turned here a little bit to fit on the screen. So look at the bottom. You can see that's Ellsworth. Some of you have seen this. This is out with a broker. This is what's projected. There's no guarantee here. This will be the final layout. But I want to point out a couple of things, and they brand it as the Eastmark. You know, you got grocery, another grocery store being talked about. That's actually, I know, is being negotiated. A hotel for 120 rooms is the projection. But 42,000 square feet of retail and 36,000 square feet of restaurants. That's, to me, exactly what you need is all that restaurant. We were joking earlier that I had a call from, saw an email on a what we call a pre-submittal process today for a retail quick serve, one of your favorite custard places, at the corner of Warner and Ellsworth. And I just looked at it and said, what are we going to do with this? This is the best we can do. And I sent an email to that developer, which is different from doing the industrial. This is the retail 10 acres, 11 acres, 16. The point is, we have to push developers to get to a higher level. That's the message that I need your help with to continue to hammer home. Okay, I want better quality. And it's not just the elected official, it's good for him to hear it, to the developer as well.
Bill, I want to stop you there real quick. I think you used the Q word, and I've heard that from our elected official. I've heard that from a lot of different people. Can you stop a second and say, what do you mean by better quality? Okay. What does that actually mean?
Especially on this layout that you have on screen.
Right. So for me, how many more drive-through restaurants you want?
No.
That's good. Well, they tend to, the Burger Kings and the McDonald's of the world tend to prove a market. They tend to lead. With that, like one down at KD's and whatever else. How do I get? Where's the wine bar? Where's the better?
Cigar bar.
Okay, cigar, bourbon, anybody else? No, anyway, we started on Trish yesterday with this stuff too. The whole point here is better sit-down qualities. In today's world, you're not going to eliminate drive-thrus. But there's actually an ordinance being proposed. This will help to address the Q question, where instead of having the squat box, and I call that a drive-through when you order when you pull up, a lot of people like Sally orders from a rack, and then she drives around and pulls in and is ready for it. That's the way she is. Point is, that is more of a quick, it's a pickup model versus a drive-through. And we're trying to draw that distinction, and thus, the biggest complaint we hear is, hey, I don't want to hear the squawk box in the middle of whatever, it could be 10 o'clock and you're hearing somebody else. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Anyway, so that's what I see is better quality sit down. You're not going to totally eliminate even the sit downs. You can go in and dine in, but you can also pull up because Sally ordered more food. She eats a lot. By the way, all right, I'm going to stop. Turn this over to these guys.
We will, Pat and I will echo everything that Bill was talking about as far as being very strategic in the approach of the types of businesses that they're looking for and wording strategic with those. There's been more than a few conversations that have gotten somewhat heated on putting bigger buildings to accommodate larger employers. And Bill has been very steadfast in where he sees that vision. And it is not in this corridor that we're talking about technology. So you will see some larger buildings, but for the most part, the pushback on what would lead to more logistics companies. Bill has been very steadfast on that vision alone, especially along that corridor. So although we've tried to get a couple of things away from him, he's been consistent throughout the last 3 years we've been doing this out here.
Yeah.
So we do appreciate that.
So think about that as a group. Because there's a lot of square footage in a building, doesn't automatically become it's a warehouse. For me, that large building is going to fit that tech company that I'm talking to that's going, hey, I have a need for 500,000 square feet. And there's more than one or two of those out there.
I mean, we can use an example. We're negotiating a technology company for electric vehicles. There's a 353,000 square foot building going up there just south of Warner on the west side of Ellsworth. That's the type of user that we see out here. And Pat and I will talk a bit more about kind of the dynamics and why would we attract more advanced manufacturing than we would people with logistics. But I just wanted to kind of echo what you were saying, that you've been very consistent messaging.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Me, you know, someone.
Would you like to give you that?
Yeah, so we fire up the video. So kind of a perfect segue. Steve and I were hired by DNB Brookfield to provide marketing services and sales services for the land that encompasses 500 acres from the northern portion of the residential up to Elliott within Eastmark. So in line with what Bill was talking about and what Sally touched on as it relates to driving quality employment for this corridor, this is the marketing video that we put together.
Well, and just real quick before we jump out, this video was done 2 years ago. So it's going to give you an idea of what the vision was from the city, what the vision was from DNB and Brookfield, and really what Pat and I were tasked to go implement. And then we can talk a bit more. We'll show you a little bit of what has happened and what is happening, and talk a bit about that type of part.
Next, pull up the next slide, Church. Great. Before we talk about how the market is, what's happened over the course of the last 2 years and the commitments that we've seen in the Southeast Valley from a occupier perspective, you know, Bill and Sally, we work with other municipalities within the Southeast Valley and really across the valley, and it is an awesome opportunity to work with both of them. Not all people are created the same as it relates to their approaches to economic development and to our absolutely best in class. So we're so grateful that we get to work with such thought leaders with respect to working together to drive investment. So with respect to what Bill had touched on with business that is committing to this market, if you look at probably the most important breakdown right here, I'm sorry, this is a little small. Advanced manufacturing technology, automotive, aerospace, and electric vehicles, those two categories alone comprise of 50% of the space commitments in the Southeast Valley. So that's entirely different from a makeup in terms of industrial. When we talk about industrial, as it relates to the Southeast Valley, comparatively speaking to, say, Tolleson or Avondale or Goodyear, it's a different discussion. It's a different, Bill used the term knowledge workers, and that's really what those categories make up. And I would say that included with that also is medical and pharmaceutical. So if you look at what our market has done, and this is the Southeast Valley specifically, it's absolutely incredible. Bill mentioned the 242 prospects that are coming from GPAC. So if you look at what we did last year in terms of space absorption, it's just under 5 million square feet. And when we're talking about space absorption, we're talking about businesses that commit to these buildings, whether these buildings that are built on spec, which means they're built empty, or they're buildings that are built to suit specifically for these user requirements. We did just under 5 million square feet last year. We've done over 5 million square feet year to date this year. And behind that, we have about 20 million square feet of space demand that all falls into these categories listed below: consumer goods, aerospace, I mentioned, beverage, and more than anything, advanced manufacturing. So when we talk about advanced manufacturing, why is that occurring right now? You've all heard the words supply chain for the last 2 years over and over again, and the struggles that we've encountered there. The benefit to those struggles is that it has driven reshoring of manufacturing, interest and investment to Arizona and specifically to the Southeast Valley. So these are IT companies, these are high-speed data components companies, these are electric vehicles companies, these are companies who are making investments in this market because of the availability of talent. If there's one singular driver that drives their interest in this market, it's the availability of talent. Connectivity with the freeway system is important. The retail amenities are very important, but more than anything, they're looking for quality jobs because they're building products that are increasing the value of the community as a whole, and they want people working at those locations who actually live in this community. And that's probably more than anything, if there's one key takeaway from what Steve and I want to convey, I think it's that when you think about what's being built, whether it's Eastmark or in the perimeter of this community, our objective, and it's evidenced by the types of buildings that we're talking to these developers about building, is to drive the advanced manufacturing and technology investment. So how do you do that? When you're designing a building, these buildings look a lot different today than they did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, for sure. More importantly, they look a lot differently. They look a lot different in our market here than they do, say, in the West Valley. So what does that mean? That means a heavier parking ratio, where a pure distribution building is usually, what, about half of 1,000? Yeah. And so we're building these buildings upwards of 1.5 to 2 per 1,000 square feet. So what that means is, say, for example, there's 100,000 square foot space commitment. Typically, that's maybe a 3,000 square foot office area and a warehouse. What we're seeing more than anything in our market is space commitments where the office build out is over 20%, sometimes upwards of 50%. And the back area actually comprises of engineers, lab, and light advanced manufacturing activities. That cover it so far. Pretty good. Does that help a little bit in terms of what we're trying to accomplish here? And is that in line with, you know, what we talked about, you know, from an overall vision that Bill touched on?
I would even jump into this thing with Pat had touched on the investments, and specifically here in the, Arizona, and what we're seeing that is driving a lot of activity is Intel's $20 billion capital investment. LG, that's going to be a huge one from the electric vehicle standpoint. TSMC putting their plant here. We're seeing service providers. I mean, we just landed one with Bill's help down in the south part of the Gateway area. The investments are what's driving a lot of these vendors that are going to come in, that are going to be the high wage jobs that we're looking for here. So we need to be able to support them, and in the way that we're designing these buildings, the maturation that we had in this market over the last 5 years. I mean, we used to be kind of a 15 to 50,000 square foot tenant market. Now we're seeing groups that are 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 square feet. Pat just did the Amazon deal for 1.1. We just put Lowe's down for 1.2 million square feet. So the buildings are getting bigger, and that has a lot to do with consumer behavior more than it has anything else to do. So you're looking at how do we shop online more than we did 5 years ago. And you know, grandma's ordering groceries where she never understood how to do that before. It's a complete change in consumer behavior, which is driving a lot of this. And then really the highlight of the supply chain side of things and the manufacturing that we were so reliant on single countries, that they're now making those regionalized, which are bringing more and more of those here, due to the fact that we are a pro-business community, we are low tax bases in comparison to the Californias or Nevadas or surrounding areas that we're competing against. So we own extremely well. We were for a long time a very low cost community to live in, but due to a lot of migration, that started to climb up. But long and the short of it is the behaviors have changed as far as the types of buildings we need to build to suit today's industrial users, and more employment industrial, because that's the target that we're going for. So not only is it more parking, it's being more thoughtful about the amount of power that they're in. What used to be very light loads are now talking about putting in multiple service entry sections to accommodate these manufacturing type operations. If it was logistics, we wouldn't do that. It'd be a waste of money. And then you really need to look at what the dynamics are in the Southeast Valley. The reason why you see a lot of the trucks in the West Valley, Tolleson, et cetera, they have an 11-hour turnaround time for trucks. You can drive for 11 hours in a truck.
That's to the ports.
Out to the ports, so you can service a building in the West Valley. You can't get through the city, get out to the Southeast Valley, and turn around and go back. So you're losing a day, which is very cost inefficient. So, and then you look at really who lives in the Southeast Valley. 72% of engineering jobs currently in the Phoenix market reside in the Southeast Valley. I'm not saying they all work here, that's where they live. So it's easy for groups to come plant a flag out here, be close to a lot of these different large users. I mean, all the defense contractors Sally had talked about, the Intels of the world, all of the different ecosystems that we have out here, and the supporting groups that we need to be able to bring in. That is really what we need to be able to understand in the vision that Bill and his team and Sally have been able to create. And Pat and I have the easy job. I mean, they've already told us what to do. Let's just go find the right users.
Yeah, more clearly the least important people in the room. And with that, perfect segue to pull up a flyer on a project that Steve and I are working on, and we are getting ready to break ground. I like that.
Those DJ actions on it. How we roll out here.
So when we talk about the features of these buildings, Number one, if you see, the front entrances have a considerable amount of glass line. We put what's called gingerbread on the exterior of these buildings to make them more aesthetically pleasing. It doesn't just serve the purpose of benefiting the community and having more attractive buildings. It's really important in today's environment that developers introduce product that companies feel that they can attract and retain talent in. So it coincides with what business objectives are. We talked about parking. We have more parking in these modern industrial flex business park buildings than has historically been the case. And usually these projects are built on a spec basis with some office up front for marketing purposes, which usually gets modified as the user moves in. And they're built very flexibly. So based on the activity that we're seeing in the market right now, with this particular project, Steve and I think there's a high probability that most of the users will take the entire building, where these buildings are actually designed to accommodate smaller users and divide smaller. Taking the entire building is probably a higher probability in today's environment because of the slide that we just showed before.
Trish, would you mind going down to this, maybe the next slide? I think it's
Page two on it, yeah.
Page 3. I'm sorry. There you go.
And so if you look at how these buildings are broken up, we envisioned that for all of these buildings at first phase, there's a high likelihood that they'll be taken by single occupiers. But we do have to be cognizant of what Trish was talking about and what Sally talked about in serving the smaller occupier, because they're an incredibly important part of this ecosystem as well. And so these buildings, do you have a question?
I was gonna say, what section, what's the streets on that area right there? Where's that? Those
You got
sections?
Everton on the west, so this is just south of Elliott. You've got Everton on the west, because you're familiar with where Edgecore is. It's just across the street from Edgecore. So Mesquite is being designed and permitted and under construction here shortly. Everybody gives us a green light. So that first phase will be in the northeast corner of what we refer to as Mesquite and Everton, but it's essentially right across where.
So that's probably what's being constructed right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what you probably go by.
Okay.
And you kind of look, Pat and I wanted to show this to you. We're not trying to hide anything. We want everybody to understand what's being built. And I think one of the misconceptions that a lot of people have is the amount of truck doors. Why do we have so many truck doors if you guys are saying this is not a logistics company? Well, at the end of the day, we have to build these buildings flexible. The bigger they are, the more doors they need, because we don't know exactly how they're going to break up. As Pat said, they're likely going to go to a single user, but we can't bank on it. We need to make sure that the investment's sound. We need to make sure that it is a kind of a bulletproof design. And I'll give you an example. We have a 486,000 square foot building sitting in the middle of that. It is a cross dock. But at the end of the day, that's going to look very similar to what you have over here with Dexcom. They furred in the entire west side of all those doors just so they can build a mechanical yard out in the truck. But we didn't know that that was how that was going to go. So we need to be as flexible as we possibly can. But the target here is deployment and quality.
Well said. Yeah, so if you look at what the most active commercial property sectors are right now, it's multifamily. And it's this business park type product into industrial. It's office, and office is in this, it's in this space where it's trying to figure out what it's going to look like. What is the next environment going to look like? Well, a lot of this product is going to play into that, and that's why we built more glass on the front entrances of these buildings to accommodate. There's really this hybrid taking place, this hybrid trend that's taking place where we're seeing R&D companies go into very high-end Class A, what we refer to as, flex type buildings. Well, flex kind of became, a red X got put on flex because we built too much of it. And it kind of, in the last cycle, Bill, I really wish you didn't mention 2008, because that was a tough time for all of us. And we lived through it and we got through it together, right? But we built too much of that flex product during that 2008 time period, or leading up to it, And because we built too much of it, developers kind of backed away from it. They're like, gosh, if they're gonna do anything again, they're not doing that. What we're seeing now with these modern business park type buildings is the new evolution of that, what was previously called flex product, and now we refer to it with a lot of different words, but it's basically business park type product. Is that helpful from an overall overview on how we're seeing things from them?
One other thing I do want to touch on here is just, again, going back to the amount of doors and really the concern, I mean, I would have that too if my children right now, is truck patterns. Are trucks going to be driving through the neighborhoods? As Bill already talked about, it was designed to avoid that. And if you think about just migration patterns for trucks, there's a lit intersection right there on Elliott and Everton. The bill allows that there's going to be a lit intersection on Mesquite and Signal View. So the trucks can make their protected left turns without having to go through any of the neighborhoods that you started. So these are all designed to flow the truck traffic. Everything should funnel out because where do trucks want to go? They want to get to a freeway. That's where they want to get to. They're not trying to get through and kind of get lost and do 3-point turns and look like Austin Powers in the middle of the neighborhood. They want to get out. They want to get out as quickly as they can. So again, the migration patterns are to get to the main roads to find a freeway.
So, yeah, this is great, by the way. Since this one is in the neighborhood, and I know it's caused a lot of question and whatnot, recap kind of what you said there is the types of businesses that you're angling for. You can't say no to everyone, but what is your like
Bill
top?
can say no to most.
Yeah. Okay, what's your goal here? Is this, you know, I've heard you say several things, but if you can kind of sum it up.
Yeah, and I think our target here, and really what we've been tasked with, because the gentleman that we report to within D&B in Brookfield, they have very strong ties. One of the gentlemen lives it. So, I mean, he wants to make sure that this thing is as awesome as we can make it. So we've been tasked with that from the very beginning. So going after kind of the low wage jobs and really the uglier buildings, the more trucks, that does not bode well. And again, we've already talked, that's not a characteristic, that's not a profile that we see out here, but we've been tasked with going to find the vendors for the semiconductor investments. We're talking about the vendors for the EV group. So like we were talking about that 350,000 square foot building, they're going to use 4 doors. That thing comes with 64 doors. So, I mean, it just goes to show that we don't know exactly how these things are designed, but we need to make sure that we can accommodate those. So the top ones are semiconductor related. We call that kind of advanced manufacturing. Aerospace and defense contractors are amazing out this way. Electric vehicles is probably the fastest growing thing that we've seen as of late, and I think that is going to continue on at a much faster pace. I think that's going to be one of the biggest drivers that we have out in this part of the valley. You got medical device, pharmaceutical, and all the related groups to the healthcare industry. What am I missing?
I think nailed it.
Are any of those pegged already for this area, or I know you can't say any names.
No, that's a great question. So as of right now, Eastmark specifically is a blank slate. Okay, so the project, this is the first project that will go spec, and we don't traditionally with this type of product that is really designed more to accommodate all of the groups that Steve just mentioned. We don't typically experience pre-leasing in that product. So we introduce it to the market and we provide what's called a speed to market solution for these occupiers. We do some things on the front end, and we wrestle with our developer clients a lot on this because it's their money they have to spend. It's easy for Steve and I to just say, go and buy this stuff. But what we try to do is to introduce these buildings as being complete as possible without being at the risk of wasting money. So what that means is we're ordering HVAC on the front end to HVAC the entire building. We're building out spec office on the front end so that a group can walk in and add or subtract from that office and operate right away. We're ordering motion censored LED lighting to be hung throughout the entire premises. So we do all of those things in anticipation of one of those groups. Typically, they have a desire to occupy space within 6 months of when they're going out to the market. Some of them are further ahead of the curve, but a lot of times they hold off their real estate decisions as long as possible, so they have a really good understanding as to how much space they need and the type of facility they want to go to. So this is a blank slate right now, and we think it probably will be until maybe we tilt walls. And that's usually, yeah, so that is usually the catalyst to see more paper moving from a proposal perspective. And we're, in the meantime, we're doing all of the front end marketing right now. We're doing the bi-weekly reporting to the developer on everything that we're seeing in the market. Because even though a lot of the prospects that we're talking about now may not be suitable candidates for this development because their timeline doesn't match up, it gives us an idea as to where the market is heading so that we can make any adjustments along the way.
One of the things I think you can do to start kind of keeping an eye out for these types of announcements, again, Patman Market, southwest corner of Warner and Ellsworth. That's a company called Skinnell that's developing them. So there's 3 buildings coming out. Those types of users are likely what's going to backfill these when the time is right. So a lot of these groups, as Pat said, aren't planning 15, 18 months in front of them. They barely, they want to be in yesterday, but they're giving us 3 months. So it's a little tough for us to understand that. The next one in line that Pat and I have control of is on the north side of LA. It's called MAP 202. That is one where it is actually in the advanced manufacturing overlay or the tech corridor overlay. So Bill's got a lot of say in what goes in. And Bill's going to be very protective about project, very similar to what Eastmark. So it's those 2 are in front of this particular one. We wanted just to show the one that's literally in your backyard.
But that's a good point on with the Skinnell development. The 2 prospects that we're actively talking to right now for the existing product that's currently in construction, both fall in line. One of them is a healthcare related group, the other one's manufacturing group. So the case study is kind of playing out in front of our eyes, so we're able to, I don't like to use the word forecast, but kind of, an understanding as to what's to come. And it's really no surprise because what's driving it all, if you talk to all of the decision makers, what's driving it all is access to talent and the idea that the talent pool will continue to grow as supported by Grant South.
Are we incorporating our colleges and our universities to have programs for children that are growing up?
And that's Bill doesn't know.
So there's, when these companies come to visit, it used to be you got an executive or a couple of 5 folks. The HR director is on the tour now. And part of that now is because where's their workforce coming from? Talent. So we often pull in ASU to the table with us. Having Poly right here is a big help. Talk about what their manufacturing institute is going to be like on the campus. They're developing that. Chandler Gilbert and Mesa Community College offer a wide variety of different programs. There's a program with Boeing in Northeast Mesa where Mesa Community College develops a wiring harness program where together they come up with all kinds of Dexcom. When we recruited Dexcom, it was for 500 employees. And they finished with their 3rd expansion. It'll be at 1,700. So it's a great win for a medical device. It's a wearable. It monitors your glucose, so blood sugar. So for us, it's like those are the kind of jobs that I need. They have talent concerns. And where are they coming from? Everybody's got talent concerns. If we can point to the relationships and training of people going to school, that's a big sell for everyone.
You're seeing a lot with ASU being the most innovative school at 5 years running. You're seeing a lot of those companies that want to situate, they want to put a program in there just because that's fertile recruiting grounds for them. It just funnels right into their system. So you see a lot of these groups that are engaging early to talk about how can they do that. And Polytechnic is the best way to do it. That STEM program is just insane. So we're pretty fired up about it, but that's more business by business. It is more business part oriented, but we are seeing quite a bit of that conversation.
And I think from here on out, Sally's gonna answer all the questions.
You did say that earlier today.
I did.
That's a great segue that I will turn it over to Matt and Dawn that we have collected questions and facilitate from here.
So one of the questions that we got submitted from the group, and I think we see it a lot right now, is about water. So we're all seeing the nightly news, Lake Mead getting lower and lower. We're hearing drought everywhere, drought southwest, everything. What are we doing to make sure we're responsible with our developments, that we aren't using more water than we need? We need to slow down because of water restrictions. How does water play into everything that you're talking about right now?
So water is a big issue, Southwest in general, but not every community is created equal. Mesa's been very fortunate. We have a 100-year assured water supply, which is a designation given by the state. We have excess water rights that we can't get to. Hence, there's a engineering effort now to send the gray water down to the Gila River Indian community, and we get potable water back. The Signal Butte water treatment plant's being expanded. We skipped over phase 2, went right to phases 2 and 3 together, and we're doubling capacity. Now, if you have water but you can't treat it, you have a problem. And with what we're seeing in the manufacturing process, there are now users looking for water. Contrary to belief, not all data centers use water. There are 2. Both big ones, both what I call enterprise. This last deal, we made Meta give us water rights over and above what they're going to use. They give us those rights, we can get to them, and then they have to do all their infrastructure. And then, by the way, we're going to charge you for your water. They just gave it to us. We're going to charge you for it. Now, that's any employer that shows up that needs in excess of 500,000 gallons a day has to actually bring their water. Or else we just move on. So things like food processors that tend to use a lot of water, not all of them, a lot of them do. You know what? We're not the guy for it. So we tend to, move away from those types. We're very careful. Some of these manufacturers do have water needs that are substantial. We will talk to them because we have that capacity, but when is the timing, what's your peak flow, all of those things come into play. So Mesa does a fantastic job managing their water and really looking at what are the best uses.
I think they've got answered 4 and 5 here.
I'll get my list going.
Can you provide any updates on proposed retail developments along? You kind of mentioned Ellsworth and Elliott, but like Signal Butte and Elliott, and any other new centers planned either near the airport or Bellbank Park.
Where do you want to start? So I might have you go back to that. Let's start Signal Butte and Elliott.
Okay.
There is a retail development. We break ground on August 9th, I want to say. There is a gas station on the corner. There are 4 other retail pads that go with that. I do not know users at this point. That is a company called Thompson Thrift. There are industrial buildings as a part of that phase as well. Oh, you guys paid your electric bill. SRP, thanks. Anyway.
They're good partners.
There were also some restaurant areas in that also, were they not? Across from the hospital.
So if I then go over here to Elliott and Ellsworth, and that was Signal Butte and Elliott.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying to remind you where I'm going here.
Ellsworth and Elliott.
So on the northeast corner of Elliott and Ellsworth, there is actually a substantial retail development proposed. Diversified is the developer there. It has a wide variety of uses. We have pushed on quality. He's not the most, what I call high-end guy, so we've had to push that. He has gotten a site plan approved. You do. But I think that the whole idea there is complementary. That's where you want your retail employment in that 2-mile stretch in between. On the northwest corner, west of the hospital, there's a QT gas station that has been proposed. So that's a step in the right direction.
Let's go back down then, Bellbank Park. So, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of thoughts around there, but what is that kind of doing now to our Ellsworth play, to this truck traffic versus van traffic, retail, hotel, all of that?
So Bellbank Park is driving a lot of interest now in retail. Opening of 24 here in the next few months will eliminate a lot of truck traffic. A lot of traffic in there.
Pretty grand vision on the northeast corner of Williamsville, that would rival the likes of like a desert bridge. So not to say it's coming, but there's a discussion of that. So I mean, there is a very strategic vision specifically around that asset. So we'll see if it comes to fruition.
Anxious to see if they, there's multiple hotels proposed, varying quality. And then there's more retail proposed going south towards.
Well, even on the north side of the terminal, there's retail proposed there, not imminent, but that's not what Boyer's talking about too.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. That's, I still think we're on the east side, or the west side. So across from, well, in north of Belmont, on the airport, there's an east side development that the Boyer companies has been selected by the airport. And it would be retail along Ellsworth. So think we're Williamsfield. Gulfstream is basically the south corner of Williamsfield on airport. Anything north of that, you will see everything from retail to hospitality to some level of industrial.
Since proposed is kind of a vague word, what's the timeline that we're looking at from yeah, it's proposed to, hey, look, Sally's at the ribbon cutting.
Sally likes to. She got these giant pair of scissors. Anyway,
5 years, 10
it
years.
depends on, it depends on each development. So the piece north of Bellbank Park is owned by Bill Levine, and Nick Cohen is his guy. What he comes in with eventually and when, we've had multiple conversations. We tend to think it's going to be sooner versus later, but nobody knows. Across the street on the Boyer development, I will tell you, the city's going to run 1,000 feet of roadway and put some infrastructure in. You're going to see that one pick up because demand is there. Airports put it out. Boyer's going to want to get things done. They're putting their capital up. So a lot of interest. There's also stuff proposed at Paz and Ray. Whether that one comes early or not, I'm not quite sure. But there's 16 acres at Warner and Ellsworth. We'll see what that all develops into. So there's things being proposed a lot. Got to get them and getting the quality that we want.
Let's go back to Sally's scissors for a minute. So we see a lot of industrial buildings. What are the economic drivers that are needed to attract mom and pops and more boutique style businesses in our area?
Build those attractions.
Wow.
So like us, you just pass that on.
I already warned them about
Yeah, they all warned me to pass all these questions on. So small business attraction is really quite different. As Sally said during her earlier piece with the business assistance program, they're all different levels. What I see from mom and pops, you need that, remember that retail slide that we had up on the screen for Ray and Ellsworth. You need space like that being developed so that you can attract the smaller users. I've had someone from within the development who's been corresponding with me about they want to be able to walk to their office. Okay, it's 110 out here. Now, let's see. But that, that space at Ray and Ellsworth on the northeast corner there would fit nicely. So you have to get a developer willing to create the vision and create the shell. And then I think that the marketing will actually draw, there's a lot of demand already here for small users. It's just, where are you gonna put it?
When you look at a lot of the designs of the projects that are going up right now, as Pat had pointed out on the front two buildings that we have up here in Eastmark, those can break down to about 85 homes. So that goes after that type of business, and that is really designed that way. Do we think we're still going to attract a larger usage? Yes, but there will be opportunities for space for small businesses.
I don't want to sell you. One thing,
Good, keep going.
one thing that I think would be great for a lot of the entrepreneurs and small business owners and marketeers, what can the chamber do for them, especially being out here in East Mesa? I feel like a lot of times West Mesa and downtown get a lot of attention, and we're kind of the sleepy come along. And so I know. So what can the chamber offer a lot of these companies out here?
So we have a communications department that's an incredible job for 2.5 people, and they work nonstop. We do so much behind the scenes, but like, we have businesses that have said, I don't want to join the chamber because I don't have time to engage. Well, it doesn't really work like that. It's more, we do so much like through social media, through our website. So we have portals on our website for every single business. And it's really there to help us create that really great description. We track obviously all the hits that we get for each business. Social media on every platform, so we're telling stories constantly. Sometimes I think we do a better job of telling stories about our businesses than the businesses do, just because staff is hired specifically for that. We have obviously a ton of resources within our membership that we refer to each other. Not all small businesses, especially learning out through, the Mesa Cares program, they don't know what they don't know. And I think that we've got the opportunity to educate them and really, I think, connect them more than we do anything. It's worthwhile. We have a lot of businesses that started around the time I joined the chamber as staff, and they gave great testimony on how the membership has really created their marketing for them.
Thank you. Arizona General, Ellsworth and Elliott. Are there any other medical facilities planned that you know of in that area, supporting or otherwise?
That's a loaded question.
Just curious if you're going to bring anything up.
I don't really want to defer that.
We don't have enough knowledge of it.
We've had discussions on medical office buildings. The hospital has actually decided not to do them immediately north of the campus of their hospital. They probably use the medical office being proposed on the northeast corner with the first house. There is another facility being proposed north of the hospital that is a behavioral health facility. That is going through the process. That will probably only get through planning. Council will not be doing that.
Okay. Nope, that's good.
You talked about kind of what you're doing on the facades and the looks of the spec buildings day one. What kind of things are put into either their contracts for sale or the city to make sure that this area grows and looks incredible? I think I kind of go Carlsbad and Irvine and the nice areas, and not Chino, Fontana, South Phoenix.
Chino, Fontana is the west side. So we, especially given the airport, we kind of model ourselves after Irvine. So that's really the type of vision, the types of product, the types of look that you're going to see here for years to come. And again, we're held to a very high standard in the city. The developers obviously are trying to present a product that is maximize value for them. So there's a conscious effort to ensure that the landscape is always taken care of. That always gets charged back to the tenant. So it's easy for people to get that taken care of. So there's a sense of pride within a lot of these developments you see popping up around here, that it's not just going to be a bunch of gray warehouses. That's not what this is going to be, in a bunch of trucks that are running wild.
So just to add to that, from the city's perspective, planning staff, so I'm the economic development director, I'm not the planner. And they have been given, and I don't know, but they have been given direction from both city management and council for all types of development, not just industrial, hospitality, retail, even multifamily. Raise the quality and add more that we call the gingerbread, which is right. I think for what we're looking for, I think better quality, not the standard. Oh, Mesa will take anything. I don't know. I've been told the same. So it's finding the right quality. Hey, I got 50 jobs and they're all at $45,000 each. Can we do better than that? Let's see. How about 100 jobs at 65? You know, and then I go find that opportunity versus just take whatever pops up. So we are, as I like to say to people across the country, because they're all going, what are you doing out there? I'm busy. You know, it's good to be the economic development director of Mesa, Arizona. I couldn't say that 14 years ago, because I said yes 15 years ago. 14 years ago, I was like, what am I doing? You know, the economy just fell off the face of it. So it's changed, all that hard work from back then, that strategic planning, that laying the groundwork. Ray Road didn't exist. Today it's approaching some good, so, which is great. Oh, sorry.
So this one you may have just answered, but we're going to read it anyway. What policies and economic drivers are currently helping or hurting our economic development, and what can residents do to help?
I will tell you that the market's changing, I think, as we speak. Yes, I think that, you know, interest rates will affect things. We've had hit the brakes. We've had others still going forward. The pipeline was massive. So, you know, a couple of fallouts. So the uncertainty in the economy, the uncertainty in, you know, in even the local and statewide elections play a role. One of the things that during the bull run here has been, you know, I've been asked on a national scale, what are we doing? What's one of the things that I mean we'll talk about is, you know, while we've got I think a good vision as a city and able to drive forward, I've got support for that. Not just from a councilman. I have support from all seven. I have support from the city manager. He allows me, you know, I report to him, who has a $2.4 billion budget, so over 8,000 employees. So I report right to a city manager. He gives me the ability to interact with all seven of his bosses. So think of it, it's your company, the CEO is your city manager. The board of directors is your mayor and council. So I sit with our mayor weekly, at least half an hour, probably longer. And we talk about whatever's coming or whatever I need him to help. That doesn't happen across the country. All of us going in one direction has been a great policy and a great. Now, the election coming up, you know, and I hear, well, we're going to stop warehouses, and it's like, wait a minute, that's what's driving jobs, and it's not all warehouses. And getting the right consistent message and getting everybody on point. And I think that's been the biggest difference for us. And, you know, you guys talked about it. We try to make it easy to do business. We want quality. And then we're on the same page. Well, we'll clear that for you. You know, and I know electromechanic was Iron Shingo, and they're trying. It's that one has worked out, and that was a great story because literally a week before that project was announced, there was a lawsuit, a case law that came out. Our lot versus charters that said, really limited your incentives. Okay, we backed up because we had a small incentive. Of $100,000. In the big scheme of things, that's not. But the key was the company wanted us to participate. We had a great relationship with that developer. He actually stepped up and increased his TI allowance by 50 cents or a dollar. And that's the kind of cooperation back and forth that, boy, do we move permits forward. And those are policies where everybody sits trying to get to the same end game. It doesn't happen in every community. And that's an important message. That's one of those policies I'd like to see. But stay tuned, the economy is changing.
Well, and we even had today, Lori, so Lori Collins works with, she reached out, because she knows there's a project, timing is becoming an issue. Exactly what I do that. So we talked for 20, 30 minutes, and we're getting this thing figured out pretty quickly. So Bill and his staff and his team are fantastic at that. And they really, I mean, a lot of that comes from the residents. A lot of that comes from guys that, what are we looking at building? And that's really the vision that Bill's pushing forward. So we're excited.
I'd love to open to the audience. Are there any questions that have come up or anyone have anything they'd like to ask?
Concerning power, like, we didn't have any solar.
You'd be surprised at how many of them are actually taking on their sustainability on their own. So a lot of the buildings, and this goes back to the kind of construction we're building, a lot of them are looking for the load on the roof to be able to handle. So they're looking forward to cover. So they're looking to do that on their own. The power is pretty sufficient out this way. I mean, vision with the technology corridor, with SRP building their new substation, but you would be surprised at how many RFPs have responded to, that they just want to know that the landlord is supportive of it. And then most landlords are doing, I'll say the minimum to get the certification. They're putting in certain things, especially now charging stations that become a very big conversation for us. So we are seeing a shift. It was a very hot topic probably 10 years ago. It kind of died off, but now sustainability, not necessarily certification, has been the hot topic for the last 2 years. Sure. So it's more user driven than it is anything else.
I got a question. So, I appreciate an effort to continue to rise to the occasion as far as the types of buildings and the things that we're seeing here, right? So I've been a resident here since 14, and a lot of the excuse is the only word that I can use here, but obviously there's there's mathematics that come into business and what attracts businesses to what area. And I think, speaking from a resident's point of view, we've heard on numerous occasions that there weren't enough rooftops to attract certain types of businesses. Didn't have, the clout to bring in some of the things. And you yourself, Bill, said that, we're sales tax driven, we do specific things. I see a lot of traffic that leaves this area and goes to Gilbert for entertainment, whether that's Richmond, or if you want to fight the fight down in Queen Creek, So we're watching dollars leave this area that could be utilized for other purposes. So my question is to the gentleman from the development side. Do you feel like this area now has enough clout where we can start to drive a different type of relationship with entities that we want to bring here?
That's what you saw on that slide. That is the reason for the levels of absorption that we're seeing in those categories right now. It's because of the community as a whole, talent that it affords. So you don't see it all right away, and it's a work in process. And what I think Matt had asked about, you build these buildings and then you lease these buildings, but what about the next owner? How do you preserve the value moving forward? And it's kind of like the solar question, is that if you have the right accessibility to talent, which is the #1 reason why Steve and I call a developer and say, we have an idea. We have an idea and we think it's going to work. It's the #1 thing we look at is the availability of talent. So when you build the buildings the right way, that has the right amount of utility, that has the right environment to attract and retain talent, then what happens, to address your earlier question, is you source the occupier who is in the category of what we call sticky. That occupier isn't going to want to leave because now they're embedded in the community. They've made huge investments in the building, and they've got the employees that also live in that community that are working at that building. But I think it's an unbelievable case study that, although all of that absorption on the chart that you saw looks really good and it's encouraging, it's still probably 2 to 3 years out before you're going to see it really manifest itself in some of the deals that we talked about that are pending at the Spinell project, from an actual business commitment to this corridor specifically. It is happening from our eyes. And to Bill's point, we are seeing some changes in the economy as a whole. We're seeing disruptions in the capital markets because of interest rates going up, but we have not seen any lack of enthusiasm from users for this particular corridor. We will absorb more space this year than we ever have in the history of the Southeast Valley in this corridor. As that and that does not happen without the right demographics. It just doesn't happen.
So, and I think to kind of bridge onto that, Fred, with the absorption going in, hearing that our demo, that you're equating us to 24th and Camelback, I think the number one question from just about every resident here is, well, then where's my billboard? Where's my, snooze, my AM eatery, and why is it desert and concrete box? So if you could kind of just give a little bit of, where are we in that balance? Because for the longest time, it's been, get houses, you'll get a grocery store.
So part of this is, you have to have, I used to kind of move it around the residential world. You have to have a willing buyer and a willing seller. So in this situation, the city has a great vision. The residents have, great demographics. But if the developer doesn't want to play ball, what is that? They're finally sitting up and paying attention. Retail developers are finally out and about. You need to continue with your voice to be heard. You need to, show up at a planning board meeting when a retail proposal's out there and push the better quality. Just continue to get the message out. Councilmember, believe me, and again, it's a little unique with Kevin because volume's pretty regular. But the point is, he relays a lot of these messages, and then when the planning director and I and Councilmember meet, pretty regular. That is one of the things we talk about. We got to find ways to drive this. We've got a little marketing campaign against 4 retail developers. We're just trying to make them aware. Hey, did you look at these numbers? Now, in order to keep politics happy, I also did like a dozen other areas of the city. But I can't take 4. Keep all 6.
You drop a couple thousand employees in here too.
Yeah.
That's going to draw a lot more attention. So to Pat's point, it's going to take some time, but I agree with Bill. The more you guys continue to be at quality level and be involved, that's going to be the critical path forward because the jobs are coming. I mean, that's imminent. It's a matter of getting these buildings up. It's a matter of backfill. But by the time you take a building from like the Spinell project we're talking about, by the time that's completed at the end of this year, to the time they're done touring, it's going to be the end of 23. So we're talking 24 when we actually see a mass of employees in any particular building. So it's just a matter of time. And I can appreciate being here since 2014. We planted our flags out here a long time ago and seeing this thing grow. Yeah. But we agree. I mean,
yeah, there's been a lot. I mean, I think you answered the question for me. From your comments too, Bill. I mean, we definitely are attracting attention. I think that's what residents more worry about as far as, we obviously, businesses got to grow, buildings go up, things of that nature. We would love to see a balance of that and things, things that we could benefit from closer into our community. Because part of the selling point was you don't have to go far, so I'd like to enjoy that. So
I'll send Fox.
I was just going to say,
So we're getting close on time. I think the question I had, I think is very pertinent to this moment here is maybe one word each of you on what will help or what will kill Eastmark. So it's all proposal, you know, it's coming, there's negotiations. So obviously there's things that will help that go well. And then there might be things on the broad scheme that might make that slow down. So
I'll go
Well,
first.
and before we do, not everybody knows East Market, so you're talking about the retail.
the retail rate, Ellsworth that they showed us earlier.
Yeah, Ray and Ellsworth, Northeast corner. Oh,
I think a lot of this is gonna be education, very similar to what we've tried to pass along today. What is this vision? We're not going after certain jobs, we're not going after certain, lower wage, we're really going after quality. So I think a lot of that is more of an education process, and obviously the smart leadership being the loudest voice in the room, that's gonna be critical.
For me, the word support comes to mind. You know, Brookfield DMV has proposed a very viable retail center. How do you help them fill it with the right people? You may have relationships with Sam Fox. Hey, Sam, have you looked at this corner? It's out with a broker. I mean, they should be marketing the daylight on it. But I think the idea here is continue to support where they're going. And how do you help them? How do you help, you know, from a local perspective, your development arm, but how do you help the broker? How do you get the message out? That's what I see, because it's the right vision. Just gotta get it done. And without that, where are you gonna put your small business?
I think having an understanding of exactly what you guys are looking for, being residents, being full-time here, raising families, et cetera. What are you guys looking for? What are the types of retail that you guys are really looking to track? That's going to be helpful in the pursuit of that. That's going to be helpful in the retail brokers being able to check the right group that will get plenty of support from the city, from the community. So I think a lot of that is really making your vision.
And having worked with Dee on this particular site and having it redone a few different times, I think the vision's there. It's got it. It's time. I hope the market holds in order to get it done.
One last question that I had. You said that Mesa is driven by sales tax. With all of our concrete buildings that are being built, how much sales tax is coming off of those? How do you regenerate?
How many employees are there and where are they spending their money?
Okay.
So for me, it comes down to, hey, you know, a lot of them go someplace to eat, someplace to come and go from.
Okay.
Hopefully a lot of them live here, but that helps to stimulate the economy. It's like you say about winter visitors. They come and go. They'll spend anywhere from 3 to 6 months. So half the year it sits empty. That doesn't generate economic activity for us. That's changed here. This is one of the full-time community. With the jobs now, keeping people here, not exporting that town. You don't have to get on the highway and go. So those are some of the differences that I see. It's about adding the quality jobs and people with disposable incomes. Again, these aren't, you know, low-wage jobs.
Perfect.
Any last call for questions in the room? Awesome. Well, we're gonna wrap up here. I think we're just about at time. So first I wanted to say thank you to our panel. Seriously, every year I find this one of the most interesting conversations we have. Being on the edge, and now not so much the edge, kind of more surrounded by development. Every year we learn and hear something new and something different. So thank you again to everyone. So your round of applause. Thank you.
All these things are up. We're starting to see the employers jump in.
And that's what I say to Eastmark leadership. Thank you. Keep asking. So one thing I've heard probably the last 4 years in a row on this is make our voices heard, speak up. So every local business, every local kind of cool concept, well, they've got a broker now. We actually have a space to sell somebody. So let's keep those voices loud. Let's keep it going and try and bring people in, because that's the only way we're going to get what we want. So thank you again. You know, the potential here, the optimism, and really the activism of our leadership group. that's really what's making us,
And those of you that joined us on Zoom.
yes, thank you, Don. All right, everyone, have a great night.
Thank you.